Chris Chan for KaijuPop.com, and welcome back to our monthly series of videos having a look at this month in gaming history. This month is January, so we're looking back at January in 1984 and 1994 this time by. And here's the thing, January not usually known for game releases, big game releases. And that was definitely the case in the old days as well. There just really wasn't that much coming out. So what we've got here is some games with possibly 1984 copyrights, but that, well, were sort of reviewed in magazines and such in January of '84. Take this for example, Death Chase on the Spectrum, which came out, it's got a 1983 copyright, but it was reviewed by magazines like Crash in January '84. And, wow, oops. This is sometimes known in some circles as 3D Death Chase, because 3D was a kind of gimmick back then. I guess because Battlezone was relatively new in the arcades. So it was attempts to replicate that in games. For the home, and I had to pause there because that horrible squeaky noise is just going to jam my mic up. So the idea is that I'm driving a bike, I can steer left, I can steer right, I can go faster, and I have to shoot these other bikes, that yellow dude and the blue guy, and try and get hold of the helicopters as well, while avoiding trees. And as I'm showing every month, I'm particularly bad at video games. There we go. So there's a day and night cycle of sorts. There's tanks in it, and after every time you clear out a pair of riders here, it does the whole thing again, with more trees and faster and harder. And there's something, oh goodness, there was something at the time oddly spooky about this game. I don't know, I think a lot of these experiential games in the early 80s, there's something really spooky about them. It's like, why am I here? Why am I riding through this forest? Why am I chasing these dudes down and mercilessly killing them? They're not doing anything to me. But also, Death Chase gets really pretty exciting as I'm sort of weaving through these trees and picking enemies off. And I mean, who could have foreseen that this is actually really pretty influential on a bunch of games that we play today, in terms of the sort of first-person endless runners that you get on the iPhone, like Into the Dead or things like that. This is clearly a sort of progenitor for that. Although, to my mind, a good deal more fun. Everything's just, it's balanced really well. It's really tricky to sort of pick your way through these trees. So, a pretty good time actually coming back to this. But I'm pretty rubbish at it. So yeah, that's Death Chase on the Spectrum, or 3D Death Chase on the Spectrum. A good start to December '83 or January '84. Well, let's see what else is coming out in January of this year. What else was out in January '84? Well, really not very much. I mean, America was still in the depths of their video gaming doldrums, and I mean, apart from a busy UK scene, and there wasn't really much out in the arcades in January '84 either. So we looked to Japan and the Famicom, which was still getting a stream of a release maybe once every month or so. yeah, it wasn't really, the Famicom wasn't the instant success that you might have expected. It was kind of slow going at the beginning, and they were nailed with an issue of overheating units in their first run. So this was coming off of a product recall at the start. And there weren't any third parties developing games for the system yet. So yeah, there was typically one Nintendo release each month, and that was your lot. And January '84's release was Tennis, which was part of what would kind of become known as the Black Box Sports Series when they all headed west. Very simple kind of presentation to it, and it's just like, hey, here's Tennis, and off you go. The one I think the one kind of so I try and figure out how to actually play tennis again. Not the sport in general, just oh dear. I think the one kind of concession to Nintendo character here is there we go. Oh no. Dear me. Dear. I don't remember. I used to think there was. There we go. It sounds very quiet here. But you're basically just missing bits and bobs. What? Chalk flew up. Terrible. I think the one kind of concession to Nintendo character here in this version of Tennis is Mario's presence there as the umpire. Or maybe he isn't Mario. I don't know. He's not exactly wearing his trademark red. So maybe those are just his, sports officials' colors or what? I don't know. But yeah, 1983 copyright, as you see at the bottom there, but apparently it was released in January of '84. That's what I'm going on based on the research of the wonderful Contendo, who's Dr. Sparkle's much better at looking up these things than me, I think. But yeah, hey, it's Tennis. And given I think for the time a decent approximation of Tennis. I've got free movement of my guy here. It's the ball looks reasonably round. There's a decent sort of scaling effect as I'm hitting it. Up in the air and down on the ground and whatnot. It's not a bad game at all. It's super, super, super dry, as I think a lot of these black box games were. But yeah, I think Japanese gamers weren't really used to that much other competition in the tennis field at the time. But certainly, if you were a Westerner exposed to Famicom tennis, coming from playing whatever real sports tennis on your Intellivision or whatnot, you would be kind of blown away by this. But yeah, Tennis capping out a not particularly eventful January of 1984. So let's jump ahead 10 years and let's see what was going on in the 90s. So we jumped up to January of 1994, and what do we get? Well, really next to nothing, actually. I suppose CES was happening around about the same time, and there were rumblings of what Sega were going to do with the Saturn and Sony in reaction after being ditched by Nintendo for the what was then the Nintendo PlayStation, making their own console. But that was much later on in the year, and really nothing was coming out of either America or Japan at this time of year. And things would honestly pick up in February. But January 1994, really nothing going on. And what was left was the European release slate. And even then, geez, what did we get? Well, we got Bubba and Sticks on the Amiga and the Mega Drive at the time. A game where you control this guy, Bubba, who's being chased by a tree. Oh, knows what's going on here. It's one of those platformers where every little innocuous little beastie wants to kill you. There you go, I'm dead. The gimmick here is that Bubba is this hillbilly in a sort of Looney Tunes-esque landscape. The game looks pretty nice. And he has a stick called Sticks. It's like an alien stick. And he uses it to solve environmental puzzles. They put the stick in there and then I jump up. He's gonna come back. There we go. He magics himself back. God, this was... this was the real doldrums of 16-bit character action platforming, right? There's nothing... God. I was going to say there's nothing too outright dreadful about Bubba and Sticks, but yeah, Bubba and Sticks is pretty dreadful. Do I need to go again? Just to get that rock over. It's just insipid, isn't it? I mean, it's just everything wrong with video games at the time. It's like, well, let's make a mascot that we can build a platformer around. What hasn't been done yet? Slap George Yokels. Okay. I need something more though. How about an anthropomorphic stick? Yeah, right. Yeah, this was received not too badly in the Amiga magazines at the time. It does look very good. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. I think it's something to do with these characters. I'll confess to not having played this game before now. Yeah, I'm not sure it's really worth my time figuring out what I'm supposed to do in Bubba and Sticks. Say, oh great, respawning enemies, and yeah, Bubba's down. Yeah, Bubba and Sticks wasn't very good, but there were a couple of slightly better games out in January '94, both of them driving games. Let's look at those. So, another game with technically a 1993 copyright, but there was so little coming out in January 1994 that we have to cheat a little bit. F1 on the Amiga, on its way to the Mega Drive, where it was much, much better than this, was actually based off a Lancor game called Vroom, and then taken in by Domark and given an F1 license. So it's got all kinds of weird menus based off that Vroom thing, like Leg 1 and Leg 2, I have no idea what that means. We're going into a championship here, but you have to have one car set up for the entire season for wings and tires. And then it only has 6 tracks, despite being officially licensed, and about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 licensed drivers, which is really weird considering how, Formula One's governing body are about licensing these days. I remember reading that Codemasters wanted to put their F1 game onto iOS, but because they couldn't have the entire field of drivers on the track at any one time, it couldn't be, you can't have a race in an F1 game without a full grid, and it be licensed. So, they just made it into a time trial game. So this was really well received at the time. Now playing it, God knows why. I actually played a lot of the Mega Drive version, which was a lot smoother. I had a pain in the ass getting this to run, because this was kind of the era of Amiga gaming where it was starting to turn a little bit PC-ish for my taste. You had specific AGA versions for the A1200. Things would run like crap on a box standard Amiga 500, even if you had 1 megabyte of memory. So I played this first with the A1200 thing, and this isn't the AGA version. of the game, so it just ran ridiculously overclocked. And then on an Amiga 500 it was crazy slow, so this is an Amiga 600 with something like 4 megabytes of RAM, and it works. A real pain just getting this to run. And it's one of those driving games where, yeah, I mean, at the time there was really only arcade racing games. I suppose Jeff Crammond and his famous F1 series was out at this point. I haven't done well enough to really qualify him, so I'm sort of midfield here. But yeah, everything was sort of an arcade racer, and their approach to that was, well, hey, we're going to have a regular track, but we're going to put all of these obstacles right at the side of the track. And this is really annoying because F1 was kind of praised at the time for being quite fast and smooth, and this is all just about killing your momentum by slamming you into the side of the road. I suppose, you had things like Super Monaco Grand Prix at the time, which were doing similar things. It's just that, I don't know, for whatever reasons, it was a little bit more fair, Sega's game, a little bit better handled, and here your car explodes and wheels fly off and then magically attach themselves again. It's a bit crap. What is good about F1 is that you can see it's kind of got a pseudo-analog approach to handling, where most people at this, there were analog joysticks around on these machines at the time, but most people didn't have them. And most people were just using a one-button digital joystick on the Amiga. So what the workaround that Rancor did here was, you're not, rather than pressing left to go full lock left, you are holding left to gradually add more lock to the steering, and if you release it, it's just going to automatically adjust to, you can see, perhaps you can see it a little bit better coming out from these corners. It automatically adjusts to the gradient of the corner, and if you want more lock, there you go. I'm not touching anything on the steering there, that's just the way that it is. That's really clever in a way, but at the time it was kind of a revelation because a lot of these games just handled like so F1 kind of handles nicely. It's just that it's all about killing your momentum all the time. It's like you get up to a decent speed and then whack into the side of whatever thing there is. And these days it's, well, you have arcade races and they're there to be fast and not shove things in your way. And you have simulation races to cater to those people. But these days, in the mid-90s, certainly on the 16-bit formats, you didn't have that range of options. But yeah, for whatever reason, I really liked F1 at the time, on the Mega Drive at least. Perhaps, I mean, it was a more fully rounded version. They had like all the tracks on it and stuff, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Perhaps it was just for one of playing it in the era and playing it in the closeted era where I hadn't played Ridge Racer, which had come out in the arcades a couple of months prior, or Virtua Racing, which had come out a year prior. It's it was just this as a kind of antidote to the sort of more staid Formula 1 Grand Prix from Jeff Hammond and Microsoft Pros, there you go. And those more sim races that were just coming into the ascendancy. This is pretty boring, so I'm going to quit out of this race. But there is one more kind of interesting mode that I want to show before we finish up here. Once we get past the Amiga 500, Amiga 600 here, loading times. See, what this and Vroom had was a turbo mode. So we're going to have a look at what turbo is. And let's switch this over to arcade. So we just do one thing here. There we go. So I've just hit start. It's just started loading. I didn't realize that it's automatically changed my control method from joystick and automatic gears to mouse and manual. So, well, I suppose this will be interesting at least. Have I played a driving game with a mouse? I'm about to find out, I guess. Okay, so like in turbo mode here, just Oh god. Right. Right click. Okay. Mouse controls means. Oh my goodness. It's using mouse, but it's still doing the Amiga thing of up to exact. I still haven't figured out how to change it. Right. Of up to accelerate, so I'm moving my mouse up to accelerate and down to brake. It's got so many analog steering. This is horrible. Oh my goodness. Are we getting somewhere? Wait. There you go. Okay, I've got this. Right click to accelerate. So you say, wow, crap. Turbo it kind of cuts down on how big the cockpits are and just makes it stupidly fast. And yeah, that happened. My goodness. Yeah, not good. Surely there must have been something good coming out. Surely there must have been something good coming out of January 1994, and there was. It's just that I can't get it to run for whatever reason. So we're looking at some other people playing Skid Marks here, which was probably the best game of 1994, January 1994, or again, probably late 1993, going by copyright. But there was just so little out. I think even magazines were reviewing everything in their February 94 issues. So yeah, Skid Marks was kind of, as you kind of see, an isometric racing game, very similar to something like Ivan the Iron Man Stewart's Off-Road Challenge, but with scrolling tracks, and everything on it was just kind of crazy. Like, this first track here is already a figure of 8, but crazy jumps, crazy everything going on at the same time. 2-player is what we're watching here. I recall the sort of vanilla Amiga versions only had 4 cars on the track at once. As you can see, there's like a yellow dude and a red dude and a green dude somewhere around here. I think you got yellow, red, green, and blue, but the AGA version allowed you to have up to 8, I believe. And then there was a sequel, Super Skid Marks, that opened things up and had bigger fields and more tracks and just a better structure and everything. And this was really focused on multiplayer. Split screen here, but also there was online play. You could dial up the BBS and play it that way. And yeah, this game I just have really fond memories of. So I suppose not being able to play it here today for this video is a good thing, lest those memories be ruined. But yeah, just really chaotic, really hectic fun, and that was Super Skid Marks, or the original Skid Marks rather, rounding up a disappointing January 1994. But do stay with us because February is where things get really, really interesting and really busy on the schedule front. For more this month in gaming history, a full written feature, head over to kaijupop.com and check that out, as well as much, much, much more. I've been Chris Charles from kaijupop.com. Thanks for watching. Bye.